The secrets of the criminal world are now literally at your fingertips. In 2026, scammers no longer rely on old methods like skimming. They buy old ATMs, hack them, and develop personalized devices that can steal data and money in just a few seconds. This industry has turned into a global business with a turnover in the billions of dollars, where modern technology and crime play leading roles. Spare parts stores. The darknet has become a true supermarket for carders, offering virtually everything needed for criminal activities. Fraudsters sell not only standard skimming devices, but also fully assembled kits for ATM hacking. These devices, designed for specific ATM models, are high-tech solutions that can bypass even the most modern security systems. A skimmer kit for ATMs like Diebold Nixdorf or NCR can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000. This price includes not only the device itself, but also a micro camera that records PIN codes and a license for special software that helps decrypt stolen data dumps. For criminals, this has turned into a real business, where they buy and use professional hacking tools to break into banking systems. Each device is an individually designed product, adapted to a specific ATM model. This means that skimmers installed on old ATM models can now be easily replaced with new ones that blend perfectly with the card slot. Fraudsters can use professional modifications that are impossible to detect, even if the bank conducts regular inspections or uses anti-skimming sensors. Just like hidden micro cameras, criminals can monitor how a customer enters their PIN code without them suspecting a thing. Dump market. It's not just data theft devices that have found their place on the shadow markets. There is also the so-called dump market on the darknet, databases containing information from stolen cards, including PIN codes, card numbers, and other personal details. These dumps are often purchased by criminals for card cloning and subsequent use. Criminals steal not only physical cards, but also financial identities. For example, a full set of data for a gold or platinum card, including the PIN code, can cost as little as $120. There are also cheaper categories of cards, such as EBT cards, benefit cards, which are popular among carders because they are easier to clone. While these cards may cost less, they still hold value for fraudsters, as the data can be used in large quantities. Once the data is stolen, it ends up in so-called dump shops, where it is resold to other criminals who use it to withdraw cash or make online purchases. Fraudsters can even sell or rent this data in bulk, in entire lots. After all, these dumps don't just contain card numbers, but full financial identities that can be used to carry out transactions anywhere in the world. The evolution of skimming, from plastic covers to shimmers. Before the latest technologies like shimmers and deep inserts came into play, scammers used classic skimming, a method that was simple but incredibly effective in stealing data from bank cards. This technique was once very popular and affected millions of people. Unaware of it, victims would use ATMs without suspicion, while their financial data was already in the hands of criminals. How classic skimming works. A classic skimmer is a device installed on the card reader of an ATM. From the outside, it looks like an ordinary overlay, but in reality, it hides an actual reader that copies data from the card's magnetic strip. How it works. Installing the skimmer. The scammer simply installs the device on the card reader of the ATM or terminal. The device precisely hides the original reader, replicating its appearance to avoid raising suspicion from users. Data reading. As soon as the victim inserts their card into the ATM, the skimmer starts reading all the data from the magnetic strip, card number, expiration date, and other important information that can be used for cloning. Card cloning. The criminals take this data and then clone the card, using it to withdraw cash or make purchases at nearby locations. Advantages of classic skimming. Easy installation. Installing a skimmer doesn't require deep technical knowledge. The scammer can do it quickly and without attracting attention. Wide availability. Skimmers could be installed on most older ATMs and terminals. This meant that such devices were accessible to anyone who knew how to use them. Most older ATMs still lacked modern security features. Durability. Old ATMs typically aren't updated and remain in use for a long time. This gave criminals many opportunities to steal data, while banks didn't update their security systems. Disadvantages of classic skimming. Limited to magnetic strips. Skimmers only work with cards equipped with magnetic strips, meaning they cannot steal data from cards using chips, EMV. However, since chip cards were not yet widespread, skimmers continued to work for a long time. Increased attention from banks. Over time, banks started equipping their ATMs with modern anti-skimming systems. The introduction of radio interference sensors and device tracking systems significantly complicated the use of classic skimmers. However, many old ATMs still hadn't been updated and remained vulnerable to skimmers. Despite the decline in popularity of classic skimming, it still poses a threat to card users in some countries and regions where ATMs have not been updated or equipped with new protection technologies. Secret cameras and the latest technologies. In 2026, technology is constantly advancing, and while scammers used to hide many cameras in the most ordinary places, today criminals have devices that are difficult to detect, even by the most experienced experts. In 2026, amid the latest threats, 4K micro cameras are emerging, which not only record videos with incredible clarity, but can also analyze finger movements to accurately reconstruct PIN codes. These ultra-small cameras with minimal lenses can be hidden in the most inconspicuous places, such as fake bolts, frames of advertising brochures, or even in braille stickers. Scammers can hide a camera anywhere you wouldn't think to look. They capture every movement you make, and even if you try to shield the keyboard with your hand, they can still see every digit you enter. A real-life example. In 2025, a group operating in a major shopping center in London was uncovered. They used 4K resolution micro cameras hidden in promotional materials. These cameras captured hundreds of PIN codes, leading to millions of dollars in losses for victims. The criminals used neural network algorithms that allowed them to accurately calculate the sequence of key presses. As a result, they were able to clone cards and withdraw money from ATMs throughout the city. The cameras don't just record video. Today, they can analyze even the slightest finger movements and calculate the sequence of key presses using neural network algorithms. These systems allow criminals to recreate PIN codes with astonishing accuracy. Importantly, even if you shield the keyboard with your hand, the neural network can calculate which key you pressed based on wrist muscle movements. Technology is making fraud even more sophisticated, and traditional methods of defense, like covering your hands, are becoming useless. Even if you confidently rest your hand on the keyboard, your movements will still be recorded and analyzed. Thermal skimming, a new way to hack PIN codes. If you think you can hide your PIN from a camera, thermal skimming will challenge any of your efforts. This method is one of the boldest and most innovative ways to hack bank cards. How does it work? When you enter your PIN, your fingers leave a thermal trace on the keys you press. This trace can now be used to accurately reconstruct the PIN code. Criminals use infrared scanners to analyze the temperature gradients on the keys. So, even if you think you're covering the keyboard with your hand or fingers, infrared cameras can precisely capture which key was pressed first and which was pressed last. The system can reconstruct the entire sequence of key presses with remarkable accuracy. How does it work in real life? In 2025, a case was recorded in Miami where criminals used thermal cameras to recover PIN codes from ATM users. The criminals placed special cameras near the ATMs that analyzed the thermal traces left on the keys. This allowed them to recover up to 92% of PIN codes, and in some cases, fully reconstruct them. This meant that people had no idea their data had been stolen until they noticed the loss of funds from their accounts. An interesting fact, this method captured real-time temperature changes left by the user and reconstructed the sequence of key presses. The criminals gained access to victims' cards without even touching them. The most important point is that this makes old methods of protection, like covering your hands, completely useless. This hacking method continues to evolve, and despite all the efforts of banks, it is becoming increasingly difficult to fight against. PIN codes and card data can now be stolen not only with classic skimmers or micro cameras, but also through invisible thermal traces left on the keys. International syndicates and global operations. These are no longer the work of lone gangs, but international criminal corporations, where fraudsters employ the latest technology. By 2026, ATM fraud has become a full-fledged industry, where even old ATMs are tools in high-tech crimes. Criminals operating within global networks have found ways to bypass any security system, adapting to the most modern protective methods. These criminal networks are vast and can operate in dozens of countries simultaneously. Their methods are meticulously thought out, and they use professional tools only available to the most experienced specialists. The Nebraska 87 case, January 2026, Nebraska. In one of the most high-profile cases of the year, jackpotting, hacking ATMs using endoscopes and viral software, was uncovered in a large-scale operation. Criminals associated with the Venezuelan syndicate Tren de Aragua used endoscopes to connect to the internal data bus of ATMs. By deploying the Plutus.D virus, they activated the ATMs to illegally withdraw cash. In just one weekend, the criminals managed to steal $1.5 million by hacking 12 ATMs. The massive crime involved several groups: scouts who selected ATMs in poorly lit areas, technicians who drilled the ATM casings, and drops who collected the cash. It was a well-coordinated operation by a true criminal syndicate, working like clockwork. Such an organized scheme would not have been possible without the use of high technology and professional expertise. Operation Multi-City Outreach. 2 weeks after the criminals carried out this global hack, the U.S. Secret Service conducted an operation in several cities: Seattle, Denver, and Cleveland. In Denver, 19 next-generation skimmers were seized in a single raid, used to steal data from thousands of people. This raid was a vivid example of how global criminal networks employ the most modern technology to carry out thefts. Most of the arrested individuals were from Eastern Europe and Latin America, confirming that ATM fraud in 2026 is no longer a local threat, but a global business. This case served as an important reminder that ATM fraud is no longer confined to certain regions or countries. It is a planetary threat that everyone, without exception, is facing. Theft of social benefits, the epidemic of EBT fraud. In 2026, the theft of benefits from EBT, electronic benefit transfer, cards became one of the most cynical types of fraud affecting people who rely on social welfare payments. Why EBT? EBT cards, used for receiving government benefits for food and other necessities, are mostly not equipped with chips and only use magnetic strips. This makes them an easy target for skimmers, as the magnetic strip does not offer the same level of protection as the chips on new bank cards. Skimmers installed on terminals can easily steal card data and clone them for later use. Example: the massive loss in California. In February 2026, California experienced a loss of $120 million when thousands of families discovered that their benefits had vanished immediately after being deposited. People who had been counting on social welfare payments to buy food and necessities found their money gone and their accounts were empty. How it works. Fraudsters install skimmers on terminals, cash out the cards, or use them for purchases in stores without the victim suspecting they are being targeted. The money disappears within minutes, and victims often cannot track where their data was stolen. The scammers act so quickly that the victims don't have time to block their cards, ultimately losing all their funds. Fraudsters especially target large families or low-income individuals, as they are often unable to immediately notice the theft of benefits, relying on automatic deposits. This fraud has become an epidemic and has affected tens of thousands of people. How to protect your money. In 2026, when criminals use shimmers, thermal skimmers, and high-tech cameras, the challenge is much more complicated than just withdrawing money from an ATM. Criminals now possess technologies that can intercept information when you're completely unaware of the actual threat. So, what can you do to protect your money and safeguard your cards from these threats? The task is simple, but critically important. How to protect your money in the age of cutting-edge technology. Use NFC payments. Modern payment systems like Apple Pay, Google Pay, and Samsung Pay use dynamic tokenization. This means that even if a fraudster intercepts the signal, it will be useless within a second. This is how NFC, contactless payments, technology works. Why NFC? The simple answer: Shimmers cannot intercept this data. Unlike regular cards that transmit constant data, contactless payment technologies create one-time tokens. So, every time you make a transaction, a new code is generated that can only be used once. Even if a fraudster captures the signal, they'll get a useless code that they can't use. Mask the thermal trace. What if you had to use an ATM with a card? Even if you cover the keypad with your hand, thermal skimming can still play a role in stealing your data. Here's a simple but effective way to protect yourself. Place your palm on all the keys for 3 to 4 seconds. This will literally mask the thermal trace left after you press the keys. This method blocks infrared cameras that use infrared scanners to recover the PIN code. Why does this work? When you enter your PIN, every time you press a key, a thermal trace remains on the button. Cameras can reconstruct the sequence of key presses with up to 92% accuracy. If you mask the thermal trace, it will make it much harder for even the most modern infrared cameras to track it. Choose safe locations. Not all ATMs are equally protected. Criminals especially target outdoor ATMs in poorly lit areas, where they're easier to hide. So, choosing the right location is one of the simplest yet most effective ways to protect yourself. How do you choose a safe ATM? Try to use ATMs located inside bank branches, where there is physical security and radio interference detectors. These devices can detect anomalies like skimmers and alert you to potential threats. Also, bank branches often have surveillance systems, which reduces the risk of skimmers or other devices going unnoticed. This not only increases your safety, but also gives you confidence when making transactions. Don't risk your money, especially if you can avoid outdoor ATMs. If you're standing in front of an ATM in a poorly lit area or alone, be extra cautious. Don't rush, take your time, and make sure the location is safe. The end of the plastic age. 2026 is not just the continuation of the plastic card era. It marks the transition into a new age, where technology is evolving so rapidly that criminals are often one step ahead of security systems. Today, ATM and card fraud is no longer just a local threat. It has become a global problem affecting millions of people worldwide. Criminal technologies are becoming increasingly sophisticated, and without vigilance, one can become a victim in an instant. Skimmers, viruses, deep inserts. These technologies are increasingly used in criminal schemes. Even the most modern ATMs with high security levels are vulnerable to new threats. Traditional methods of protection, like using chip cards or covering the PIN, can no longer withstand these attacks. In a world where criminals use cutting-edge technology, it is crucial to stay one step ahead. Your financial security is in your hands. Be ready, be cautious, and don't give fraudsters a chance.